Well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. This is the Healthy Living Podcast brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. I'm Joe Grumbine. I'll be your host, and I'm here once again with Richard McCuen. Richard, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Okay, it's good to be back since the transition. It's been about 2 weeks a little over 2 weeks since we last talked.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it feels like it's been forever. We've gone from barely knew each other, talked a couple of times over the course of a few years to we've been talking just about every day. You've gotten involved in our nonprofit, you've gotten involved in our company. We're working together as human beings, trying to help each other. I've gotten involved in your Biohack 40 program. And then all of a sudden it was flash. I got this life-changing situation I got to go deal with, and it turned out it went from I got this problem with the landlord to I got to move. And when it was like I got to move, it wasn't, I got 3 months to get out. It was I got a week. And you went from, how long did you live at that place in Central Cali?
I was there 5 years and never had a problem, and then the management just went downhill, and it's something that everybody can go through as far as like a wrongful eviction or whatever, because they're privately owned and pretty much they can get away with whatever they want within the law. And I mean, I held them accountable and put them in line and under the law, letter of the law, and it wasn't even good enough. So it just shows you, like, the devil exists. There's no reason to keep proving it. So
that's a good one. I haven't heard that one before, but that's for sure. Another point is,
I think that's pretty much like been a demon for not myself, but for a lot of people, is you always know that negative, but you always want to support it instead of, rerouting the neurological, in your head to where you can actually separate that and know about it, but it doesn't control you because you don't live within that, part of that realm all that exists.
Yeah, how many people live in a situation that's toxic or work for a company that they're unhappy with, or put up with things that they wish they didn't have to, when the truth is they don't have to. And the truth is, staying in a bad situation is, for a lot of people, easier than taking the chance and putting yourself into a new situation that might be better. And it seems like from the outside looking in, you're like, well, of course it would be better. Anything would be better than what you're going through, right? But when people are in the middle of it, they're like, well, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. And it's like, okay, but what if there's an angel instead of a devil that you don't know? What if there's anything other than something worse, which is pretty likely, I would think, right? I mean, you flip a coin 1,000 times, 50% of the time it's going to land on the other side. So you would think that having the courage to go into the unknown, I think that's really where it comes into. Like, I think people are scared of the unknown more than most things in the world.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's allowing that to control you is where it is wrong. And and that's pretty much like developing the program, the Biohack 40. That was originally like a tier 1 op type program. Tier 1 op is like, SEALs, special forces and stuff like that. Small groups, I should say, within the military. So it was built from that level, that mindset. So breaking it down for everybody else not everybody in the world has that, tier 1 op type of mindset, but everyone can develop that within themselves to where it can align, everything can align the same way. So breaking it down in little steps instead of focusing on just 1,000 a day, that's the end goal. I never started thinking of 1,000. It's what I end up building to. So instead of always wanting to focus, well, I want to be like if you don't know where you're at or where you're going, it's harder to focus on the end point where you want to be instead of the now. So one of the things in
Well, think about it like this, like if you're driving a boat and you're in a boat like a canoe or a boat that sits real low to the water, and you're driving, well, when a wave lifts you up, you can see out there. But then when the wave drops you back down, you really can't see anything. All you can see is the top of the next wave in front of you. And you're out there paddling away and you get a little glimpse and then you don't see anything. And then there's times where, for example, I went out to White Sands, New Mexico, many years ago with my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time. And we were hiking along in these big dunes. And it's crazy because you get to the top of the dune and you can see the tops of all the other dunes, and you can even see a mountain out there. You can see the sun going across, and you can see a little tree over here and over a lot of nothing, right? But then you drop down even just 5 feet, and all you can see now is the top of that dune you're in. And then you got to take and walk all the way across to the other side and try to climb up to that next hill. And then once you get to the very top of that hill, you can see all the dunes out there again. So I think that, like, if you go on a fishing boat, or if you go on even a cruise liner or any kind of boat, a military boat, they have, where does the pilot sit? He sits way the fuck at the top.
yeah,
And they bring him up as high as he can, or the guy that's looking out for the fish, they got a tower, and he climbs up this tower and he sits out there and he looks and looks and looks and he goes, oh, I see a boil way out there. The guys down on the deck, they can't see that boil because they're sitting down. So I think having a goal, like your 1,000 number is a crazy number. Like I told somebody a couple weeks ago that I had done, 200 and some push-ups that morning. And he's like, oh man, you're going to be sore tomorrow. I'm like, well, no, not really, because it was only 10 more than I did the day before. So I'll be a bit more sore, but I'm not going to be a lot more sore because I already did it yesterday. And
right.
and now today I'm not quite finished yet, but my mark today is 370. So I'm 170 more than I was a few weeks ago talking to this, and I'm still about the same. What I'm noticing is, like, I recover a little quicker, and where I get to that tired breaking point, it keeps reaching out a little further, but it's not dramatic, anything about it. But then when I sit there and I look at that 1,000 mark, I'm like, oh God, I'm barely a third of the way there. But when I got started, I was a 20th of the way there. And then I was a 10th of the way there. And then I was a 5th of the way there, then a 4th of the way there. Now I'm a 1/3 of the way there. Before I know it, I'll be a 1/2 of the way there. And those increments get smaller and smaller, and they're harder and harder to get to. But it just depends, like I said, on where you're looking at. And if you don't have that spot off in the distance that you're headed, it's real hard to get yourself into that place where you go like, okay, I'm just got to put in my time right now. I'm going to get to this next level. I just got to get 10 more than I did yesterday. That's all I got to do. I got 10 more. And then I got 5 days of this, and then I get 2 days of rest. That's how I'm living this thing. And I'm just like kind of just in the middle of it now, going, okay, when I'm doing it, I'm just focusing, going, okay, well, where's my next little thing that I can tweak to make it better? So what I'm doing now, I've come into your spot where, you do these sets of 20, 20, 10. And so that's all I do anymore is I do 20, 20, 10. Then when I get to the last piece of the missing puzzle, I'll either do 10, 20, 30, 40, or a whole set. And that's how I'm doing it now. And now the thing is I'm trying to say, okay, well, what can I do to get better at this pace? When I first got started, the last day of the week, I would do a bunch more, but now I'm like, shit, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Otherwise I'll get to a spot that I'll have to.
So you're pretty much you're building it you're doing increments to 300 each day.
Every day
is your goal though for, like, say, the week, I'm gonna get to 300. Or are
Every
you doing?
day I'm doing 10 more than I did the day before. So every week, at the end of my 5-day week, I've done 50 more than the last week. So every week I'm growing by 50 towards that goal. So
So you've worked yourself in one day to doing 300.
yeah, I'm doing 300, well, 370 today is what I'll be doing, 370.
Okay. So
And then
right.
tomorrow I'll do 380. And then
So
Friday, yeah,
your point of how do you break the barrier to build instead of in 10 increments, you've already built in your mind that you can control 300, you know,
right,
1 to 300.
yeah,
There's nothing in between it. There's no
no, I got
avenues
that, no
or,
problem,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying? There's nothing. It's just 300.
Six sets,
So
6 sets, and I
do
got
three
that, no problem.
for the next week, do 300 just a day. And what that will build, so whenever you rest and recover and you go into the following week on that next, what is it, next Monday, you'll be at like 400 a day.
Okay,
Is because that what you're doing is you're building 300, and then you're just like taking that like pinky toe step,
yeah,
like, and then 10 more. So the 10 more is doing it slow because you want to climb.
right,
Well, in the mind, you have to teach the body that we don't have to go slow to climb that 300. We can nail it.
okay,
So my focus is 301 or 400. I don't have the 300. I have 100. So I
okay,
have that. So it's 6 sets per day. That's all you
right,
do. Is 6 sets per day. You don't
okay,
think 300. It's 6 sets.
yeah,
Which the 20 20 10 that's 100. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
two. You do 2 more sets and you're done.
yeah,
You know, 2, 4, 6. So that's the mind. That's the chess game to get to the 1,000
right,
in your head. Is where am I stuck at? So it's pretty much like you said, when you're in the woods and stuff, and you can see the mountaintop, and you know where you need to go.
yeah,
Where everybody's trauma introduced into the mind psychologically is, that's where the focus is. It's like in the jungle. You know, you may see the endpoint, you feel the endpoint, you know what you want, but yet the mind is trapped in all the undulations and all the barricades and stuff that you're seeing.
right,
Because I learned that when I was in the Marine Corps in Okinawa in the jungle. It's one of the most dense jungles in the world, triple canopy. So during midday, you can't even see your hand in front of you. It's that dark,
wow,
real humid. It's one of the most challenging jungles I've ever been in my career in. Uh,
wow,
but like I would have to have like 150 foot of rope around my body and tied, because I would be helping the unit cross areas that weren't attainable. So like a 300-foot cliff drop, you know, but we need to get to the other side. I would have to climb down and go up to the other side, link it across so everybody else can get across in a safe manner while we put, you know, security out. So I was
wow,
that guy. So on top of, you know, 110 pounds of weight, I had another 50, you know, from the, you know, the 150-foot rope.
right,
And it teaches you how to wrap it around so you can just yank it and it pulls it off so you can keep on going. But
yeah,
one of the things in the mind is we'd always look on our GPS, and we, you know, in our triangulation for compass, we pick up a known point out. Like you'd see the top of that mountain, anybody could see it, and you think all you got to do is just walk straight. But once you start your journey and you walk into that your destination, it becomes different,
yeah,
and it becomes a longer travel, and you get lost. And if you look all around, everything looks the same.
right,
You're disoriented. So that's pretty much how trauma is. So in the breaking the down to 40 push-ups and building to the 1,000, it's taking all that undulations out of your jungle, so that you can see your end destination a lot clearer. It's having the right tools in your belt to help you with a situation that you've never been put in.
right,
So it teaches the mind the muscle memory, not the body. And you could teach the body the muscle memory, like if, like in dive school in the military, you sign a waiver and they pretty much can drown you. Well, yeah, and it's pretty much true. I'll tell you that. So if you get in a real situation and you are feeling like you are going to drown, you're way out in the middle of God's ocean, and these waves are just crushing you, your body already automatically knows that kill point and can adjust from it.
Right.
So it's like, oh,
And
we've been
most
here
people
before,
don't
we
have
know
any
this isn't
idea.
good, and it shoots you more endorphins and adrenaline to where you could focus and actually flight instead of fight, or
Right.
fight instead of flight. So the flight syndrome, that's where everybody gets trapped in the trauma. It's releasing that within the program, and it is all by pushing yourself. You're teaching yourself worldwide. It's pretty much the mindset of the Marine Corps, because the air, land, and sea, we're the tip of the spear. So like the psychological level of breaking that out of, like, how do you put that in a program? How do you deal with that? So everybody can say, oh, I understand this. I don't have to go in the military. I don't have to do this. I can put myself in the same mindset and do what I need to do. And one of the things it made me think that way is when my dad was going in the military back in Vietnam. He was right out of high school and he was drafted. So he pretty much was shit out of luck.
Right.
They shoved the green weenie right up his butt big time.
Yeah.
So what he did is said, well, if I'm going to be forced to do this, I'm going to do it my way. He walked in the Air Force recruiter and signed up and joined. That way he wasn't going to the front lines or, wherever they were going to send him.
Right.
And, he that was his journey. And that taught me a lot. It's like, just because you may seem like you're not in control, you still are, even though somebody else is,
Well, you always have choices in any situation. And that's, I think, one of the key points that, like, even in the worst situation you could imagine, there's always a choice that you can make. And people come to me all the time as victims, and people, oh, I can't do this because I can't, because, oh, I'm not going to be able to because this thing happened to me, so I have to. And I'm like, okay, I mean, who am I to argue with what somebody else can and can't do? But I think to myself, well, maybe you can't, but there's other things that could be done here. And, that's, I think, a key empowering tool that if people realize, no matter what, I always have a choice. Like when I was locked up behind bars and being accused of a crime that I didn't commit, and it was not even, shouldn't have been even a crime, what they were accusing me of, I sat there and part of me was like, oh, I got to get out of here, right? But you can't, because you're behind steel bars. There's nothing to get you out. So then I was like, okay, wait a minute, I'm in here. I control whether I go crazy or not. And so that's the thing I got to get my head around. So I says, to get away from all this angst and this, I got to find a way to relax and smile, because that's the opposite of that. So I found a way to laugh, and I found a way to smile, and I found a way to be okay in a place that was terrible. And that was how I was able to, and a big part of it too, is I told myself every day, multiple times a day, I go, you know what? One day you're not going to be here anymore. One day this will be over. 1 minute, at one point, you're just stuck in a moment of time. And before you know it, you won't be there anymore. And that was 10 years ago. And I still think about that like it was yesterday, because it's traumatizing, right? And you never forget about it. But I also look back and I say, well, while I was in that hell, I had the wherewithal to create something good out of it. I took it and I says, well, I'm going to make myself stronger in a way. And I didn't want to get out there and, do the exercise thing, because I was an old guy. They didn't care. And I was not in that world. So I said, I'm going to make myself strong up here. And that was what I did. And I look back at that and I go, well, of a terrible experience, I got a gift from it. And I think that that's kind of one of the keys, is that we have in our mind the gift of that tool of being able to make a decision. We were given by our creator free will. And that's the key to everything, right? Because that means you have a choice. Even if somebody pushes you and you got to go down in a hole that you don't want to go down into, and then you don't have this physical strength to resist that thing that's pushing you. You have the ability to look around and say, okay, well, I'm going down in this hole, but where am I going to go once I go in there? What am I going to do? How am I going to react? What's my mindset? What am I angry? Am I happy? Am I being resourceful? And am I observing? Am I mindful? I mean, all of those things that's what you have that choice. So I think that having the point of view and a target to hit, but also I think having trust, like, you're in a unique position when you're working with people with this program that you created, it works. At least it works for you, and it works for the people that you've been able to bring it to and help them get through. So now you have that experience. So that experience has caused you to be an expert in that topic, right? So now you're the guy that knows the most about this program, partly because you created it and you have the most experience with it, but that puts you in a unique spot. So if somebody knows you and trusts you to say, hey, I want to go through your program, I want you to be my guide, can you show me how to get through that? You can say, yeah, I can get you through it. I can tell you what I've learned, and if you want to follow my lead, then I know I can get you to the other side of this thing. If you want to have doubts, it's like Jesus out on the boat walking on water, and I think it was Peter comes out and he's like, hey, come on over to me, it's okay. And he starts walking, and he's walking on the water, and then all of a sudden he's like, I can't do this. And Jesus is like, well, what the heck? Where's your faith? And that's the key, is if you can believe in something that, or somebody that that has the skill, and let go of your fears and say, okay, well, I trust this guy. It's a matter of trust, right? So regardless of where you place that trust, if you put it in somebody that you're like, that guy's not going to let me down, he wants me to succeed, he's going to give me what I need, or he's going to tell me, hey, watch out, you're going to go down a place that's going to hurt. All right, that makes my life easier. I don't have to try to invent it. I don't have to go and do what you did, which was figure it out. I can now all of a sudden go, okay, you give me a little correction, I just go, okay, I'll try that. And I have inside my experience that you want me to succeed. So the advice you give me, I say, oh, I'm just going to take that. Not, if I struggle with it, I'll come back and tell you about it. But otherwise, I'm just going to get in there and try to do it.
Yeah, it's like knowledge is pretty much power, and the power, I think, is more of the focus now than it should be on what took it to get to that power. And that's where you have to have that mindset that it's achievable. So like you said, I had to go through this and figure it all out. Well, to me, when I was doing it and going and figuring it out, I didn't know what I was creating, because I would post my video or my push-ups and do, and then the interaction is where it ended up developing to helping others, so it wasn't just like, oh, I did this will help me, it'll help you. I guarantee it. No, it was like more like family, of veterans. And you started connecting, and it's like, hey, this dude could do it, I could do it. And that's pretty much the mindset that I've built myself on. Are stronger people than me, have been through a lot more hell than I have, because you don't want to compare somebody the same, hell that you're in,
right?
Because you're never gonna get out. You're just gonna keep falling back in the hole. You got to push past that comfort zone, and you got to think that, oh, I can do this. I am worthy of this. And then within that, it creates to where you have that person in your fighting hole, which is you. The higher self, your higher self of you, is supporting you now. You're supporting, your higher self, and that's what it's about. Putting that mindset to where, yeah, I'm doing 300 right now, but you know what? Next week it's 400. Why? Because I don't even have to do 300. My goal is 400. Three's no more. It's a 4, and then a 5, and then a 6. But jumping it in the 10s, you didn't even know that's exactly what we did. We only increased it by 10.
Right.
If you think about it, because you're doing 360, 370, and I'm going to put you at 300 for an entire week, and then you're going to jump to 4. So pretty much you'll be at 400 at ease, and you'll be pushing past that 400 by next week.
Right.
And it's only in a 10 increment move.
Yeah.
So you eliminate the rest of, well, if I made it halfway, I know I could make it the rest of the way.
Right.
You know, because I may know the end destination, but it may not look the same or feel the same when I get to it.
Well, I noticed that
where the change is right there.
There's different points that I'm paying attention to now. Like the hardest point is the point that says, okay, let's do this right now. And you go from whatever you're doing to down on the floor, getting ready to hit your first one. And once you're doing them, it's no big deal, but it's that decision of, okay, get down there and do that first one. That's the first decision that you got to make. And then there's the question of, okay, well, how long are you going to rest between sets and rest between each one? And, you know, like I give myself a minute, but sometimes I count it out real fast. I just count. So it's really probably only 30 seconds, you know, and then other times I'm just like, I'm going to take my whole minute, and it doesn't matter because I gave myself a minute, and I can count to 60 as fast or as slow as I want. But then now I'm looking at it going, okay, well, what about the time between sets? And so like I had started out and I gave myself like 30 minutes. So I set a little timer. And so I'm out there in the morning doing my thing, and my little timer goes, it's okay, time for another one. And it just makes it to I don't have to think about it. Otherwise you start putting stuff off, and next thing you know, you're halfway through the day going, oh crap, I still got 10 more sets to do. So I don't want that to happen. So I just make it easy. I just set my thing. So I started at like 35 minutes, and then I reduced it down. So now I'm doing 25 minutes between. And so, but I'm always thinking, okay, how can I mix this up a little bit so that it's not, so I don't get stuck in a rut, right? Because then you feel like, oh God, I just got to get through this. I'm like, might as well enjoy the process. And so my next thing is I'm going to do 2 sets back to back before a rest. And that's what I'm going to try the next time I do it. So I'm going to do.
There's a whole process to everything, like,
yeah,
especially whenever you're planning something. One of the things, like when we deploy in the Marine Corps and went overseas, I ended up going to Okinawa for 6 months. So you're coming, you know, from the States, and you're going to a foreign country, to a new environment and everything. So once we got based there and set up and running, we didn't go anywhere or do anything. We weren't allowed to. We were grounded to the base for 10 days. And it's to acclimate,
right.
so that you can acclimate to your environment. Why? Because we're about to be, you know, real world in the environment. So yeah, that's just like any situation or any program or anything in life that you're going to do. Is if, say, like what I did is I went from California to Georgia, different climate, different altitude. Right. So I can't just show up and go out, you know, midday in the sun. Right. And do my workout and start, you know, like functioning like I was in California. Right. It kill anybody's body. You'd suffer, you know, you're going to suffer the consequences because it's too much of a shock to your system. Right. So it's the same thing with the mind. And if you're planning a new event, or you have a goal that you want to set, it's the same thing. You have to acclimate and start in short intervals to attain the larger interval of the journey. But if you don't do that, you just, like, if I say, oh, this is 1,000 push-up program, just go ahead. And people that are going to try to do 1,000 right off the bat have never worked out or nothing, even dudes that have been working out, they can't do it. They quit. Right. Why? Because they're not acclimating. They're not microdosing themselves into whatever they feel that, or where they want to go. Right. That's pretty much like the mindset of starting with the 40, because now, as of next week, you'll be at 400, which is only six off the 1,000, right? Instead of the whole 1,000. So you've taken a quarter of that out, and it's gone. It's forever. Like 10 years from now, you could quit push-ups right now, or the program and start in 10 years. your body's gonna remember.
Right. I can do that.
And exactly, because
Yeah, I've already
rest of
done
it's
it. I
gone.
can do it again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, muscle memory. So it
Yeah.
teaches you the muscle memory of life, the journey of life. And that's pretty much
Well, that's what's
psychologically
kind
how
of
they broke
cool
down things in training.
about this approach is that every day I'm in a new spot. It's like, but then, like you say, you get to these little plateaus and you're like, all right, I'm in a new spot, but it's only this much better than the spot I was in yesterday. It's like it always seems like, even though you get to this little win, you're like, God, but the more I look back, it still seems like it's forever away. Again, it's so much about mindset. So you were telling me, you just moved to Georgia and you got hit with a bunch of, unexpected hassles and like getting things registered at DMV. And it's interesting because, the United States of America is actually made up of a bunch of sovereign states. And only thing that we agree is that if you are a citizen of this country, you get to go to any state freely. And that's it, right? Really, I mean, other than that, every state gets to pretty much do what they want. So whatever happens in California really doesn't have a damn thing to do with what happens in Georgia, except for the federal laws that supersede state laws. That's about the only thing that you can say, okay, well, that's the same. But everything else, including the way that they run their DMV and the way that, IDs and things. So like, for example, in California, they got this real ID that's coming out, right? And you have a choice though. If you don't want to get it, that's fine. You just won't be able to
Not here in Georgia.
Yeah, you won't be able to get on an airplane.
It's a requirement in Georgia.
Yeah.
You don't have the choice. And that's what I'm dealing with right now, is because my California driver's license didn't have a little star at the top of it. So I had to show, authorization that I am a citizen.
Right.
And that's the transition of it. And Georgia, they're real strict on anything that's with your name or identity, linked with that, identity to you. They want, the strict proof, that it's actually you, which is good. I know it's a hassle, but I've been there back. It's like 30 minutes, 25 minutes down the road. And I go down there and I've been back and forth 4 times.
Right.
So just, that just shows you that they don't play around. They don't take no excuse. If they want a form, that's the form they want. That's it.
Right.
And they open here at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, if you have driver's license, anything dealing with your driver's license, it's a separate place.
Okay.
And if it's dealing with tags and stuff like that, you go to a different place.
Okay.
So that's different, from California. I mean,
yeah,
all of
maybe it's better though, because regardless of what it is, like in California, they do everything in the one shot, but you got a line that goes for 7 hours just to get into the room. And by the time you wait in that line, you get in there and you don't have what you need. Too bad. You just wasted your whole time waiting just to find out.
Yeah, it was nice to be, 7:30 in there instead of 9 in California, waiting until 9 o'clock to go.
Right.
Yeah, so that was a little bit better. DMV still retarded anywhere in the world.
Yeah, they kind of have to.
You just play their game, and the first time it made me mad because I had to go back under the guidelines of what they told me. So I went and followed those guidelines and came back, and I'm still wrong. So it's like, okay, get somebody with some intelligence. So I don't have,
some good direction. So I don't.
I got better things to do than spend a full tank of gas all day long trying to figure it out.
I hear you. Well,
listen, the common sense in something.
We've burned up our time already, and I knew that was going to happen real quickly, but that's all right. I'm glad that we're reconnected, and I want to continue this conversation soon. Maybe tomorrow we can do this again. But I definitely, I'm glad you're moved. I'm glad I can feel a calmness that you have. You can see it in your eyes a little bit, and you don't have to deal with that stress. You got different stresses, you got different issues, we live in this place. Nobody ever said anything was going to be fair. Nobody ever said anything was going to be easy. Nobody ever said anything was going to work or not work. Nobody ever said shit. And so we will have our struggles because we live here on this planet. But that being said, you don't have those struggles you had before. And now, finding out where your new struggles are, sometimes that's interesting. Sometimes it's certainly not as traumatic as going through, bracing for that shit is going to be there when you open the door, right? So
Yeah. Like here comes more shit.
exactly. So I applaud that, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your journey. As it's kind of cool because I'm looking forward to you sort of setting up the Gardens of Hope in Georgia, as far as whatever you're working on, as part of this organization, and teaching people about the therapy of working with plants and gardens. I think that in addition to this Biohack 40 program that you're working on, we're probably going to intermingle some elements that have to do with nature and all of that into it over time.
Yeah, I think understanding Mother Nature makes us understand ourselves, because it's one of the things, like when I got into growing plants and stuff, it teaches you like about like disease and the growth and pretty much everything, like how we are,
Yep.
So what you deal with the plants, if it's sick, you treat it with this. It's the same thing, and like what we need to be treating ourselves. So
Yep.
with a horticulture and what you're doing, and that pretty much teaches that mindset. Because I mean, if I look at trees and stuff now, and like, oh, that one needs trims, or this needs that,
Right.
why is because I'm more fruitful because of what I put in my body.
Absolutely.
So therefore my thoughts and everything are more fruitful as well, and you're more connected to Mother Nature in that realm. And I think that's where everybody needs to be, is in the higher chakras instead of the lower, because that's where I think everybody is pretty much stuck in the lower chakras, in life, and we need to ascend more to where we can open up more with each other and start having that kind of commutative, response between each other, instead of the negative. Is to be more calm and within ourselves, actually like getting up each morning and saying, man, what are we going to do today?
Exactly.
And that's the mindset that the Gardens of Hope is about. And that's why I like it. It's pretty cool.
Exactly. Well, why don't you give us your parting shot? And now that you're in a new spot, how does anybody get a hold of you? And if you're in Georgia listening to this, you've got a incredible guy that is now in your range. So I'm hoping that you're able to connect with a great community out there and help to foster a lot of healing.
Yeah, we're pretty much covering Lawrenceville, Winder, Georgia, Duluth, Gwinnett County, Atlanta, the big ATL. We'll pretty much be everywhere. We're still on Facebook. Everything's pretty much the same, other than we moved to Georgia, and we made that move because we're going on to bigger and better things, with the company and with ourselves, and we want to bring everybody aboard so that they could have the journey and start healing as well. So we're pushing into Georgia to make sure that everybody has the healing, not just California, everywhere else. So Georgia's a good state, and it's got a lot of good quality people here. So they need the right kind of CBD and the right mental health side to get on a better track. So you need anything, just reach out on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll get you hooked up.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this has been Richard McCuen and the Healthy Living Podcast, brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. I want to thank you all, and we will see you next time.